Ladies and gentlemen, you've been talking too much about what you're going to do. You've been announcing moves that don't even exist yet. But let me tell you something, real transformation doesn't happen in the noise. It happens in the silence when nobody's watching, when nobody's clapping, when nobody's validating your journey. See, people love to broadcast their intentions, but few have the patience to build them in peace. If you really want life to change, you've got to learn how to go dark for a season. Turn the volume down on the world so you can hear the whisper of purpose inside of you. You've been talking too much about what you're going to do. You've been sharing your plans, your dreams, and your next moves with people who haven't even earned the right to know what's happening in your life. But real power doesn't live in the noise. Real power lives in the quiet. You see, when you start to focus on yourself and stay silent, something supernatural begins to happen in your life. The world starts to move differently around you because you start to move differently within you. Most people think silence is weakness, but silence is the birthplace of strength. Every seed grows in the dark before it ever sees the light. The tree doesn't announce its roots are growing, it just grows. The same goes for you. You don't need to tell anyone you're getting better. You just keep getting better until the results start speaking on your behalf. The problem is, too many people are addicted to attention. They want to be seen working more than they actually want to work. They crave validation more than they crave transformation. And the moment you start seeking applause, you lose focus on progress. Every minute you spend explaining yourself to someone who doesn't understand your purpose is a minute stolen from your destiny. The power of silence is that it keeps your energy directed inward. While everyone else is trying to be noticed, you're being built. While they're talking about their goals, you're mastering your habits. While they're shouting for recognition, you're preparing for revelation. Focusing on yourself isn't selfish, it's sacred. Because when you truly start to focus on yourself, you begin to see the patterns that have been sabotaging your growth. You begin to recognize the areas of your life that have been ruled by distraction, fear, or comparison. You start to reclaim your power piece by piece. You stop asking, who's watching me, and start asking, who am I becoming? That shift changes everything. When your attention turns inward, your potential turns upward. You realize that you don't need to announce your evolution. Your transformation will show itself in time. You don't have to convince anyone of your worth. The results of your discipline will do the talking. People will start to wonder what happened to you. They'll say you changed, and you'll smile because they're right. You did change. You stopped feeding conversations that went nowhere. You stopped trying to prove yourself to people who never saw your value in the first place. You stopped seeking comfort in noise and started finding clarity in silence. Growth requires isolation. When the world gets quiet, you finally start to hear the truth that's been buried beneath the chaos. That voice inside of you, the one that whispers direction, vision, and faith, becomes louder when the noise of the crowd fades away. The noise of the world distracts you from your destiny, but the stillness of silence draws you back to it. When you focus on yourself, you begin to realize that not everyone deserves access to your energy. Some people were never meant to go where you're going, and that's not bitterness, that's boundaries. Silence helps you set those boundaries. It keeps your focus from scattering. Every time you defend yourself, you give away a piece of your peace. Every time you explain what you're doing, you delay what you're supposed to be building. Let your silence protect what your words can't. Let your actions become your evidence. Because there's a strength that only comes when you stop talking and start doing. Discipline loves quiet. It thrives in environments where nobody's clapping, nobody's liking, nobody's commenting. That's where real growth happens. When you're not trying to impress anyone, you start to impress yourself. You start to keep promises you made to you. You stop quitting when it gets hard because you understand that the process is supposed to be uncomfortable. Pressure produces diamonds, but only in the dark. You don't see the shine until the shaping is complete. The same goes for your development. You have to let the quiet work on you. The long nights, the sacrifices, the moments when nobody believes in you, those are the incubators of greatness. Staying silent also trains your spirit. It teaches you patience. It teaches you control. It reminds you that not every thought deserves to be spoken and not every emotion deserves to be displayed. When you can master your tongue, you can master your trajectory. Because silence is not just about holding your words, it's about holding your power. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you're building emotional muscle. Every time you choose to focus on your purpose instead of people's opinions, you're multiplying your strength. When you stay focused long enough, your silence becomes sacred ground where your faith, your purpose, and your power align. This is the kind of silence that moves mountains. It's the silence that builds empires. It's the silence that breaks generational patterns. Because once you understand that your growth doesn't need an audience, you'll never waste another moment performing for one. You'll understand that what's unseen is often more valuable than what's visible. What's private is often more powerful than what's public. You'll understand that when you focus on yourself and stay silent, you give the universe permission to rearrange everything in your favor without interference. The most powerful investment you can ever make is in yourself. not in the opinions of others, not in trends, not in validation from people who can't even validate their own lives. When you begin to truly focus on yourself, you start to understand that growth isn't an accident, it's a decision. You start to see that your results are a mirror of your habits, your thoughts, and your daily focus. Everything you want already exists within you, but it's buried beneath distraction, comparison, and doubt. The moment you take your energy away from watching what others are doing and start putting that energy into developing who you are, everything begins to shift. You begin to see that success isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in solitude. Focusing on yourself is not selfish, it's strategic. Because until you learn to master yourself, you'll never master your circumstances. Most people spend their lives reacting to what's happening around them instead of creating what's happening within them. They chase after approval, they chase after opportunities, but they rarely chase after self-mastery. And the truth is, if you can't manage you, you can't manage anything that comes to you. That's why life keeps testing you in the same areas, because it's trying to see if you've learned to handle yourself differently this time. Growth isn't about getting what you want. It's about becoming the kind of person who can handle what you want. When you start focusing on yourself, you begin to recognize the difference between movement and progress. You can be busy and still be broke. You can be active and still be stuck. You can be surrounded and still be lost. But when your focus shifts inward, you begin to create alignment. You stop chasing everything that glitters and start building what's golden inside you. You stop competing with people and start connecting with purpose. You begin to realize that your biggest battle was never with other people. It was always with the version of you that keeps settling, procrastinating, and doubting. And once you face that version of yourself, life has no choice but to respond to the new one you're becoming. People will always have opinions about your journey, but opinions don't pay your bills and they don't fulfill your purpose. When you focus on yourself, you stop needing permission to grow. You stop asking people to understand what God has already confirmed inside of you. You learn to move with conviction even when there's no confirmation from others. You stop apologizing for evolving. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable with your transformation, because the more you grow, the more uncomfortable your presence becomes for people who refuse to change. And that's okay. Growth was never meant to be a group project. It's a personal mission. Self-focus creates self-mastery because it forces you to take responsibility. It forces you to stop blaming your circumstances, your past, or other people. It forces you to look in the mirror and realize that the same person who caused the problem has the power to create the solution. You can't control everything around you, but you can always control what's happening inside you. Your discipline, your mindset, your words, your energy, that's where your power lies. When you stop letting the world dictate how you feel and start deciding how you show up, you move from being a victim of life to being the architect of it. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop surviving and start leading yourself into purpose. When you focus on yourself, you also learn to value your time differently. You realize that not every conversation deserves your presence, not every invitation deserves your response, and not every battle deserves your energy. You start protecting your peace the same way you protect your money, because you realize that peace is more valuable. You stop wasting time trying to convince people to see your vision and start spending time building it. You stop talking about what you're going to do and start doing it. You move from words to action, from potential to performance, from intention to impact. Focusing on yourself also means you start embracing solitude. You learn to be comfortable being alone because you understand that loneliness and isolation are not the same. Loneliness is missing people. Isolation is meeting yourself. It's in the quiet moments that clarity is born. It's when you stop running from silence that you finally start hearing the sound of your own potential. You begin to see patterns that need breaking, beliefs that need replacing, and habits that need rebuilding. You realize that the version of you that will win the next season of your life can't look, think, or move like the old one. As you continue to focus inward, life begins to respond outward. Opportunities start to align. People who match your new frequency begin to appear. Doors that were once closed begin to open, not because they suddenly became available, but because you finally became ready. That's the power of self-mastery. It doesn't attract what you want, it attracts what you are. And when you become focused, disciplined, and grounded, life mirrors that energy back to you. You begin to live from the inside out instead of the outside in. You stop seeking motivation and start becoming it. You stop waiting for change and start being the change. You stop asking for peace and start carrying it wherever you go. Everybody wants to be seen growing, but few are willing to grow unseen. We live in a time where everyone wants to post progress, announce achievements, and share every small step as if validation gives it value. But true growth doesn't need an audience. True growth happens in silence, in moments where nobody is watching, clapping, or celebrating. The most powerful transformations always happen behind the scenes. The butterfly doesn't show the world the struggle of the cocoon. It just shows up one day flying. That's how your growth should be: quiet, consistent, and undeniable. When you stop trying to prove who you are and focus on becoming who you are meant to be, the results will make the announcement for you. There's a power in privacy that most people never tap into because they're too busy seeking applause. They don't realize that every time they share their next move, they invite opinions, doubts, and distractions that weaken their focus. Not everyone deserves access to your process. Some people can't handle seeing your potential before it's developed, and some will secretly hope you fail just to justify their own lack of growth. When you grow in silence, you protect your vision from premature exposure. You keep your energy sacred. You allow your growth to mature before you share it with the world. Just like a seed buried underground, your progress needs protection before it can bloom. You don't owe anyone proof of your evolution. You don't need to explain why you're distant, why you're focused, or why you're no longer entertaining the same conversations. Growth changes your appetite. What used to feed you no longer fills you, and what used to interest you no longer inspires you. When you start prioritizing peace over attention and progress over approval, people will misunderstand you. They'll think you become cold, arrogant, or selfish. But that's only because they benefited from your distractions. They liked you better when you were available for everything except your purpose. Growth will isolate you, but that isolation is preparation. It's not punishment, it's refinement. It's where you become the version of yourself that's capable of handling everything you prayed for. The beauty of growing without an audience is that it removes the pressure to perform. You're not doing it for likes, comments, or compliments. You're doing it because you've decided to get better for you. You stop being motivated by applause and start being driven by alignment. You stop chasing validation and start chasing victory. You begin to build a foundation that isn't dependent on outside approval. When you grow privately, you develop integrity. You learn how to stay committed when nobody's watching, how to stay disciplined when nobody's cheering, and how to stay focused when nobody's supporting. Those private victories are what prepare you for public success. Because when you've mastered yourself in private, no amount of public pressure can break you. Growth in silence also teaches humility. It reminds you that everything valuable takes time. You can't rush transformation and expect it to last. You can't skip the process and expect to keep the promise. Growth isn't glamorous, it's gritty. It's filled with long nights, quiet mornings, uncomfortable truths, and invisible progress. But that's what makes it real. Every silent season shapes your strength. Every unseen effort becomes a brick in the foundation of your future. While others are chasing visibility, you're building stability, and stability will always outlast popularity. When you decide to grow in private, you start focusing on the quality of your effort instead of the quality of your exposure. You start measuring your growth by your peace, not by people's praise. You stop comparing your timeline to others because you realize that every seed has its own season. You begin to understand that what's meant for you can't be delayed, and what's not meant for you can't be forced. You let go of the need to rush because rushing ruins what patience perfects. You learn that slow growth builds deep roots, and deep roots create unshakable strength. That's the kind of growth that lasts, growth that's built on character, not on clout. Eventually, your silence starts speaking for you. People who used to doubt you begin to wonder what happened. They'll notice you're different. They'll see the results, the confidence, the peace, and they'll ask what changed. But they won't understand that what changed wasn't something you announced. It was something you became. Your quiet discipline, your consistent focus, your private sacrifices, all of it turned you into someone they no longer recognize. And that's exactly how growth works. It doesn't seek validation. It commands respect. It doesn't beg to be seen. It forces people to notice. It doesn't demand recognition, it delivers results. When you grow without an audience, you learn that your worth was never tied to attention. You stop performing for people and start progressing for purpose. You stop needing to be seen and start being effective. And when the time is right, when the season is ready, your growth will reveal itself so powerfully that even your silence will make noise. You can't chase your calling while you're chasing people's opinions. Every time you pause your progress to explain yourself, you rob your purpose of momentum. Energy is the most valuable currency you have. And most people waste it trying to prove something to others who don't even believe in themselves. You have to understand that not everyone will see your vision. And that's perfectly fine because it wasn't given to them. It was given to you. When you stop trying to convince others of your direction, you begin to move with conviction. You start to realize that silence is not weakness. It's wisdom. You're not ignoring people. You're preserving your power. Every conversation doesn't deserve your voice. Every disagreement doesn't deserve your response. And every attack doesn't deserve your attention. Silence is not retreat. It's restraint. It's the art of focusing your energy on what truly matters instead of wasting it on what never will. The reason so many people feel drained is because they're giving too much energy to things that don't move them forward. They're constantly reacting to opinions, defending decisions, and explaining choices. But every time you do that, you're feeding distractions that don't deserve to live. Some people will never understand your journey because they were never meant to walk it. And the moment you accept that truth, you'll start to experience real peace. You'll stop explaining your silence and start embracing it as a strategy. Because silence doesn't mean you've given up. It means you've leveled up. It means you've learned that not every battle is worth fighting and not every critic deserves an answer. Your peace is more valuable than your pride, and your purpose is more important than your point. When you're chasing opinions, you lose direction. You begin to adjust your path just to please people who aren't even going where you're going. You start dimming your light just to make others comfortable in their darkness. But you weren't designed to fit in. You were designed to stand out. And standing out requires separation. When you stop seeking external approval, you start receiving internal clarity. You start asking, what do they think? And start asking, what am I called to do? That shift in focus will change everything. You start realizing that your energy was never meant to be spent on arguments or validation. It was meant to be invested in growth and creation. The more you focus on your vision, the quieter you'll become. Because the more you grow, the less you need to explain. Every successful person understands the power of redirecting energy. They know that you can't build and battle at the same time. You can't create your best work while defending your character. You can't climb higher while trying to pull everyone else's opinion with you. You have to decide where your energy will go, toward arguments that keep you stuck or actions that move you forward. Silence allows you to reclaim that power. It allows you to take all that mental noise and turn it into focus. When you stop responding to every distraction, your direction becomes sharper, your creativity flows, your discipline deepens. You begin to hear the whisper of intuition that gets lost in all the noise of unnecessary conversations. That whisper will guide you farther than any advice from the crowd ever could. It's not that you don't care about people. It's that you've learned to care about your peace more. You've learned that peace isn't passive. It's powerful. It means choosing not to engage in chaos. It means protecting your mind from negativity and protecting your purpose from dilution. When you stay silent in moments that used to trigger you, that's growth. When you no longer feel the need to correct every misunderstanding, that's maturity. When you can walk away without explanation, that's evolution. Because not everything needs closure, not every situation needs clarity, and not every person deserves continued access to your energy. Some things are better left unspoken so your spirit can remain unbroken. When you stop wasting your energy on distractions, you start realizing how much power you truly have. The energy you used to spend on defending yourself can now be spent on developing yourself. The time you wasted explaining can now be invested in executing. The mental space once filled with frustration becomes filled with focus. And that shift changes everything. You start moving differently, thinking differently, speaking differently. You no longer respond to everything that challenges you because you understand that not every challenge is meant to be answered. Some are meant to be ignored so you can stay aligned. When you stop reacting, you start rising. When you stop fighting for validation, you start walking in vision. When you stop chasing opinions, you start chasing purpose. Silence doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise enough to know where your energy belongs. The more selective you are with your attention, the more powerful you become. You start to recognize that peace is a position, not a personality trait. It's a choice you make every day to protect your focus and guard your future. The people who misunderstand your silence were never meant to understand your strategy. The people who question your distance can't comprehend your discipline. And the ones who criticize your calm don't realize it's the very thing that's creating your breakthrough. When you stop spending your energy on others and start channeling it into your purpose, you won't need to chase life. It will start chasing you. What you practice when no one's watching determines what you'll perform when everyone is. Discipline isn't built in public, it's forged in private. It's easy to look committed when the lights are on, but what truly defines you is what you do in the dark, when no one's there to clap, when there's no audience, when the motivation fades and only consistency remains. Private discipline is the foundation of every public reward. Every champion, every leader, every successful person you admire earned their strength in silence long before the world noticed them. The applause came later, but the effort came first. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits. And your habits are shaped by what you do when nobody's watching. People love the idea of success, but they don't love the repetition that success requires. They want the rewards without the routines, the spotlight without the sacrifice. But discipline is not about desire, it's about decision. It's what you choose to do daily when it's no longer exciting. It's waking up early when you could sleep in, studying when others are scrolling, practicing when others are posting, and staying focused when others are distracted. It's understanding that consistency is what compounds your growth. The results you want are simply the harvest of what you plan every day when no one else sees your effort. The quiet hours, the unseen sacrifices, the lonely grind, those are the ingredients that build the person capable of holding success without being destroyed by it. Discipline is not glamorous, it's repetitive, it's uncomfortable, and it's often unappreciated. But that's what makes it powerful, because while others chase temporary motivation, discipline gives you something unshakable: momentum. Motivation fades, momentum carries. Every small act of consistency strengthens your internal belief that you can be trusted with bigger things. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce your identity as someone who follows through. That's how discipline rewires your mind. It changes how you see yourself. It teaches you that you don't need validation, you need vision. You don't need an audience, you need accountability. The private work builds the public confidence. The reason so many people struggle to reach their goals is because they're more committed to looking like they're winning than actually winning. They want to appear successful instead of building success from the ground up. But the truth is, you can't fake preparation. You can pretend to have potential, but you can't pretend to have practiced. The moment opportunity arrives, it exposes what you did in private. If you've been faithful in the shadows, you'll be ready for the spotlight. But if you've been lazy in silence, exposure will embarrass you. That's why private discipline matters. It's the invisible investment that produces visible dividends. Every day you wake up, you're building habits that are either training you for success or preparing you for failure. There's no neutral ground. What you repeat becomes who you are. The small things you do when nobody's looking are shaping your destiny more than the big things you do when everyone's watching. Discipline is not about intensity. It's about consistency. It's showing up again and again, even when it doesn't feel good. It's doing what you said you'd do long after the excitement of saying it has worn off. It's keeping your focus locked when distractions whisper your name. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be, and it's built one quiet decision at a time. You'll know you're becoming disciplined when you stop needing external pressure to perform. You don't need deadlines to move. You don't need applause to work, and you don't need recognition to keep going. You begin to move differently because you understand that your future is being written in private. Every decision you make in silence echoes into your destiny. You begin to crave the process more than the praise. You begin to love the grind because you see the growth it produces. You start valuing the unseen effort because you realize that's where transformation happens. The quiet repetition that no one acknowledges today becomes the strength that everyone admires tomorrow. Private discipline also builds integrity. It means you are the same person behind closed doors that you are in public. You don't perform for people, you prepare for purpose. You hold yourself to a standard even when there's no supervision because you understand that success doesn't come from what you do occasionally. It comes from what you do consistently. Discipline builds trust with yourself. Every time you follow through on a commitment, you reinforce the belief that you can rely on you. And when you trust yourself, you stop hesitating, you stop procrastinating, you stop doubting, you start doing. In a world obsessed with instant results, private discipline reminds you that growth is gradual. It's not about making giant leaps. It's about taking consistent steps. It's about showing up for your goals even when they feel far away. It's about mastering the mundane and turning repetition into revelation, because eventually the discipline that feels invisible becomes undeniable. The results start to speak, the growth becomes visible, and the rewards begin to show up. But by the time that happens, you'll have already become the person who no longer needs the validation, because you'll know the work you did in private prepared you for every reward that came in public. Change doesn't shout. It whispers. It happens quietly, slowly, beneath the surface where no one can see the effort, but everyone will see the result. Transformation isn't some big dramatic moment. It's a series of small, consistent choices made in silence. Every single day, you're either building the person you want to become or reinforcing the person you're trying to outgrow. Most people never experience real transformation because they keep starting over instead of staying consistent. They chase intensity instead of embracing consistency. They want to change their life overnight, but true growth doesn't happen overnight. It happens daily through discipline, patience, and persistence. You don't become better by doing everything at once. You become better by doing the right things repeatedly. The reason quiet consistency is so powerful is because it's rooted in principle, not emotion. Emotion fades, but principles endure. There will be days you feel tired, uninspired, or unmotivated, and that's when consistency matters most. You don't show up because you feel like it. You show up because you've decided that this is who you are now. That's what separates people who grow from people who only talk about growth. The consistent ones don't chase motivation, they build habits. They don't rely on inspiration, they rely on discipline. They understand that small daily actions done faithfully are what create massive results over time. It's not the one workout, one prayer, or one idea that changes your life. It's what you do with them every single day when nobody's watching. Transformation doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for persistence. You can't keep planting new seeds every week and expect a harvest. You have to stay long enough in one direction for your roots to grow deep. You have to stop quitting every time it gets uncomfortable. Growth will test your patience before it reveals your progress. You won't always see the evidence of change while you're in it, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. Just because you can't see the results yet doesn't mean the process isn't working. The most important changes in life are invisible at first. Your mindset shifts quietly. Your discipline strengthens silently. Your spirit matures gradually, and before you even realize it, you become someone entirely different, not because you shouted about it, but because you showed up for it every single day. Consistency also builds credibility with yourself. Every time you keep a promise you made to you, you rebuild trust within. You prove that your words have weight. You prove that your intentions mean something. That's how transformation becomes permanent, when you stop breaking the agreements you make with yourself. The more consistent you are, the more confident you become. And the more confident you become, the more momentum you build. Confidence isn't about being loud, it's about being loyal to your process. It's knowing that even if the results aren't visible yet, the work you're putting in is molding you into someone stronger, wiser, and sharper than you were yesterday. Quiet consistency becomes the evidence that you believe in your future more than your excuses. You can't transform your life while living like your old self. The person you are now can't create the future you're dreaming of. Something has to shift, and that shift doesn't come from talking about it, it comes from doing it. You have to let go of who you've been to make room for who you're becoming. That requires sacrifice, sacrificing comfort, distractions, and the need for instant gratification. Transformation is about choosing progress over pleasure. It's saying no to the things that keep you average so you can say yes to the things that make you exceptional. It's understanding that every small decision is either building your future or breaking it down. And the smallest decisions, repeated daily, become the foundation of the life you'll live tomorrow. Quiet consistency also humbles you. It teaches you that greatness doesn't come from grand gestures, but from faithful effort. It reminds you that real success isn't built in bursts, but in rhythms. You don't have to move fast. You just have to keep moving. You don't have to make noise. You just have to make progress. You don't have to show the world you're changing. Just keep becoming. The strength of your transformation will always match the strength of your consistency. The more consistent you are, the more inevitable your growth becomes. What seems impossible today will one day feel natural because you kept showing up through every stage of uncertainty. Transformation happens when you stay committed long enough for consistency to turn into character. When what you used to force yourself to do becomes who you naturally are, when waking up early, staying disciplined, focusing and working hard stop being chores and start being your default state. That's the power of quiet consistency. It doesn't just change your habits, it changes your identity. And when your identity changes, everything around you starts to align. Opportunities start to find you, people start to respect you, and life starts to mirror the version of you that refused to quit. Transformation isn't a loud process, it's a faithful one. It's built in silence, maintained through consistency, and revealed through time.